When you're out in front of diminished crowds, at least Tony's checks will speak really loud as they go into your bank. Da 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 da, cha-cha-ching, cha-cha-ching. Thanks, guys. I'm John Wright with my review of AEW Dynamite Grand Slam 2024 from Arthur Ashe Stadium. Yeah, decided to butcher a classic television theme song. If you got it, I love you guys. And thanks, guys. No, in all seriousness, they're back at Arthur Ashe Stadium in front of a smaller crowd than they had even last year. So before I dive into the particular details of this show that I honestly was split on, there were a couple things that weren't bad, but a lot of it just felt really messy. This is more evidence that Tony Khan cannot book a proper show. He just can't. The commentary was grating on me, even though I like a couple of the participants. So I'm going to talk about the previous cards, and then I'm going to talk about this one. So we had Dynamite Grand Slam 2021. Big goddamn deal. The capacity for Arthur Ashe Stadium tops out at, what is it, like 23,000. So that's pretty goddamn good. And look, it's a great atmosphere. And when it's full, they had 20,177 for the 2021 event. And they have 1.273 million viewers. Now, I don't know what the ratings will be for this particular one. I know ratings are down for a lot of television, but still, that was a big goddamn thing. And they started off with Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson going to a time limit draw. That was really cool. It's one of the best AEW TV matches that they've done in their just near 5-year history. MJF versus Brian Pillman Jr., Methany, that was great because the dumb bitch deserved to be called that. And fuck her, I'm glad she's dead for all the stuff she did to her children. Malachi Black versus Cody Rhodes, I forgot about that. Sting and Darby versus FTR, FT Darb as it were. Britt versus Ruby for the AEW Women's Championship. I'm going to be perfectly honest, I forgot that Ruby Soho actually got a title shot at one point. You had Rampage Grand Slam. I'm going to talk about that. That had 640K for viewers, and that's pretty close to what some Dynamites have been doing. Nevertheless, Punk versus Hobbs. You had Cole and the Bucks versus Christian and Jurassic Express. That's when they had Marco Stunt in the corner. That stupid midget. They had Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page, the Men of the Year, against Jericho and Hager. Who were the heels in that exactly? Lucha Bros and Santana Ortiz had, an 8-man tag. You had Penelope Ford versus Anna Jay, and you had Moxley and Kingston versus Suzuki and Lance Archer. And then you go to Dynamite Grand Slam 2022. They were down about nearly they were about 6,500 fans. So they had 13,800. And look, they raised ticket prices, so they still had a pretty good gate. But they dropped a significant amount of people in 1 year. This, of course, was coming off of Brawl Out. You had Jericho and Claudio for the Ring of Honor Championship. You had the Acclaimed and Swerve and Keith Lee having their classic. I would argue they still should have put the goddamn titles on the Acclaimed at All Out, but nevertheless, as AEW tag title match, it was a big goddamn deal, but they couldn't quite capture the magic of the All Out, which was just really special. Pac versus Orange Cassidy for the, at the time, All Atlantic Championship. Toni Storm versus Serena versus Athena versus Britt. Yes, they remembered Athena actually existed on their main show and wasn't just relegated to Ring of Honor. Not saying that Ring of Honor doesn't deserve attention, but come on. For the Women's Championship, and then Moxley versus Danielson in the vacant AEW World Title Tournament Final. So, Rampage Grand Slam. Sting and Darby were relegated to facing off against the House of Black and no DQ tag. Then you had Action Bronson and Hook against Menard and Parker. That was what it was. Joe and Wardlow, that was a really terrible name, against Nice and Woods. Jack Perry versus Phoenix. Yep. You had Sammy Guevara and Eddie Kingston. When Sammy pissed off another person. Sammy's gotten to the point now where nobody really wants to work with him unless they can punch him in the face. Andrade finally got to go home at least. So, Hangman won a 25-man golden ticket. He's got a golden ticket. He's got a golden ticket for cowboy shit. And then Starks and Hobbs had a lights out match. And then Dynamite Grand Slam last year, they had 11,000 fans. Now, they got a big boost because they were looking really, peaked for that. And they did manage to get a boost with local media and everything, pumping up stuff, and people buying tickets a couple days before, maybe the day of. But still, 11,000 in a venue that holds just over twice that. Eddie Kingston versus Claudio for the Ring of Honor Championship. Now, that was actually a pretty good match. Jericho and Sammy, at that point, nobody really cared about either of those guys. Phoenix and Moxley, that's when Moxley got knocked out, and Phoenix actually won the AEW International title for a bit. Saraya versus Toni Storm for the AEW Women's Championship. That's when they gave the titles to Saraya, and I have not forgiven Tony Khan since. And MJF versus Samoa Joe, when MJF was, a face, and he choked out Joe, and actually built that up pretty well. That was for the AEW title. And then we had Rampage Grand Slam, Sting and Darby versus Christian and Luchasaurus. And then we had Hook, Statlander, and Orange Cassidy against Parker Menard and Anna Jay. Before they realized having Parker and Menard in the ring was a really bad idea. Now they put Menard on commentary for no reason. The Righteous beat the Best Friends, the Kingdom, and the Hardys to win a Ring of Honor tag title shot. I remember because this is just before Wrestle Dream, and the Righteous faced off against Adam Cole, baby, and MJF. At least it would have been Adam Cole, except Adam Cole got injured. So they just had MJF do a handicap thing. And then Julia Hart took on Sky Blue. The Acclaim and Billy Gunn beat the Dark Order, who are still around. Santana beat Boulder, and then the Bucks and Hangman beat Cage, Khan, and Leona for the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team championship. So let's start with this particular show. They had 8,000 people according to WrestleTix, maybe 8,500. So yeah, they got a boost. They went from about 65 to 7,000 up to 8,500. So not bad, but maybe if you had promoted this better and the television was actually well booked, it wouldn't have been an issue. What wasn't well booked was a lot of this show. So JR was out for the first match and also the last match. And I'm glad JR has gained a chance to celebrate his 50th year in wrestling. JR doesn't have a lot left. He needs to enjoy his golden years. I'm not saying put him out to pasture. He doesn't sound all that great. Danielson, his music plays. This is after we get Nigel out there, and he's, all soaking in the throbbing adulation, the booze and everything, and he's like, I knew it, Brian wasn't going to come out, because Brian's original music hits, and then suddenly the final countdown plays, because Tony Khan's like, I'll have more money, I have more money than the federal government, so let me just spend it. Again, on Europe, in front of it. This was a third of the capacity. This was under half the capacity they had for 3 years prior. I'm sorry, but that crowd tried to be loud, but they felt small. And I know they taped Collision right after it, so I don't know if I'm going to watch Collision or not. I know a couple of the results. But Danielson got a big pop. It was Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness. Look, it wasn't going to match what their fucking stuff was in Ring of Honor. It wasn't going to. Nigel's older. Danielson's beat up. And this was just a way to kind of honor, and tie everything together. It was what it was. Some of the strikes looked good. Some of them didn't. I'm not saying they need to lay the shit in like it was 2006, 2009. I'm not saying that. But, Jesus. I'm sorry. There were just some rough parts here. The slaps were getting kind of annoying. Wasn't the only time we saw the slaps. We got the Bukkake knee, but just no cover. Nigel kept focusing on the previously broken arm of Danielson. There was a neck crank when Danielson did while Nigel was in the corner. That was actually a nice move. And then we got a big old Tower of London, 1-2. Danielson did eventually fire back. Got the label lock on after a bunch of strikes and everything. Got the label lock on. And Nigel basically says, fuck you, and then tapped out. And yeah, the censor person was having a stroke trying to keep up on this because they were swearing a lot. Now they caught it, that's good. But then here's Christian Cage to basically cash in. But he's got to sign the contract. And then Kip Sabian comes and takes the pen. Kip Sabi pen, as it were. That I should have workshopped that. He takes the pen, and apparently Christian did not bother to carry another one in. Christian Cage as world champion in 2024 does nothing for me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If that's the best they got, they're in trouble. What it was, we're almost 30 minutes into the goddamn program here. Claudio and Pac see Christian, and he runs off. Whoa, 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 whoa. And then Hook took on Roderick Strong in an FTW title match. This is where I just basically said they've given up. Look, Roderick Strong can work. He means nothing, though, as far as a character. Hook is pretty much where he was about a year and a half ago. The Jericho feud sucked what little bit he had left, and that sounded a lot less dirty in my head. But basically the bottom line is Hook won, and then he retired the FTW title and gave it to his dad. They're getting rid of the FTW title. Okay, consolidate and get rid of a few more titles, Tony, and you might actually have something. Maybe Hook is going to go, actually go for a real belt, Pinocchio, or maybe he's going to, I don't know, maybe he's going to go elsewhere. Maybe he's done. It was what it was. That was a cool moment between father and son. The problem is the FTW championship never meant anything. It meant something briefly, but it never meant anything beyond what Taz did when he was building up his feud to Shane Douglas. And that was back in the ECW days, before TNN apparently crippled ECW. It wasn't Heyman spending money like crazy. Let's just get off that side topic. Ospreay and Fletcher took on the Bucks in an AEW tag title match. Referee Rick Knox. I'm going to tell you exactly what the fuck I said. 1, the crowd loved Ospreay. 2, Fletcher was going to turn. And 3, I am not going to watch anything that involves the Bucks and referee Rick Knox because it's the same shit. We get stupid distractions because the guy is apparently looking for like any proof of life that, somebody wants to give him because he literally looks like death is looming over him. He looks like he's about 80 years old. Actually, he looked like he was about 80 years old about 5 years ago. Now he looks like he's about 200. The Bucks do the same damn shit. If you like what they do, great. I personally don't. I'm sorry, it's the same shit. Multiple kickouts, multiple, bullshit spots. It wasn't for me. The crowd there seemed to like it. That's fine. They don't get much shit in Flushing Meadows, New York. I actually don't think it's Flushing Meadows, but whatever. Later, Callis basically hands Fletcher the screwdriver. This is after about 8 million kickouts and 2 ad breaks. This went on forever. And Ospreay stops the screwdriver spot and yells at Callis. But then an eventual belt shot leads to Fletcher getting, almost getting pinned with a roll-up, but then he gets hit with the BTE trigger. Those two guys could not win a goddamn fight against a corpse, I'm convinced. They couldn't win a fight against a one-armed guy, we know that. So, yeah, the Bucks retain. 23 minutes of television. We got no turn from Fletcher. I'm actually very surprised. I would have expected they would have gone with that. So, then the coagulation is with Renee. And I know they're called a conglomeration, but I feel like it's just, it smells like coagulated blood at this point. They've made me not want to watch Mark Briscoe. I don't want to see Kyle O'Reilly. I mean, Rocky Romero, bless him. I don't care about the Orange Cassidy stuff. It's poison to me. Shivani then brings on Prince Nana, who swears when he drives. He apparently has his own coffee. I did not know that, but good for him. Where is Swerve? How is Swerve? Why is Swerve? He's beat up, but he's trying to become, he's trying to become clear. He's trying to get medically cleared. And talking about how he is going, whose house, Swerve's house. And then suddenly a familiar voice, at least for fans that paid attention to WWE, and to know the fact that he's very well spoken, MVP suddenly shows up, who cuts a great line, not just a BS, but he's so proper about how he can, just build something up. He's a great hype man. He shows up, gets a big pop. He praises Swerve and says, Swerve can do good. It's not Swerve's fault. It's the fault of management. He blames Nana for Swerve's recent failures. All the stuff that's going on. Hangman's the man that did all the stuff to him, yet he's over here smiling. No, he's not. I don't think Hangman's been smiling one goddamn bit. And then he basically says, hey, Nana, hand him this card. It's MVP. It's a business card. And he says, when he's ready, I'll be ready to talk business. Woo! Stuck in the hurt business, as it were. So, you know what? Okay, that was at least something interesting. MVP possibly aligning with Swerve. Okay. I mean, Nana and Swerve, I think, have gone about as far as they can go. Or this means that Lashley could come in. I don't know. Lashley in AEW, you'd have to put him up against two of the guys, basically, to make it really mean anything, because Lashley is a beast. But I think he's doing some other project right now. And then the Scape joke is driving around somewhere. Didn't drive off the bridge, unfortunately. Look, I don't care. Unless Jack Perry is suddenly going to develop a personality that isn't whatever he claims to be one. That, you know, whatever he claims to have now as a personality ain't working. Unless he can get a transplant, nevertheless. So, Yuka Sakazaki, I actually don't know how to say it. It's like, you know, Alpha 5 on steroids or speed. So, Yuka Sakazaki, the Genie Girl, arrives. And then Mariah May is here to defend her AEW Women's Championship and rub the Genie Girl the right way. You know who you are, you stop that. Yuka dies before the bell even rings. Tries to pin Mariah May right when she gets back in the ring, right when the bell rings. And then the match grinds to a halt. They do some bitch smacks, and this felt off to me. I mean, Yuka isn't bad for her slight stature. Mariah May, I don't know what they're doing with her. Like, they started hot with her, you know, building up to that thing at All In. And yeah, I know Tony's taking a break, and they're probably going to maybe eventually build up to a rematch at Full Gear. She seems a little directionless. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, she focuses on Yuka's back. She vices her in the ropes and ties her up. I know somebody that wants to be tied up by Mariah. You stop that. So, high-angle German. That was beautifully done. Mariah has absolutely improved. Yuka does miss a splash and Storm 0, 1, 2, 3. So it was what it was. And then Willow saves Yuka from getting hit by the belt. And then Mina Shirakawa's music hits, and Willow gets blasted while Willow's distracted by Mina Shirakawa. Possibly her music, possibly the fact that whatever she was wearing wasn't much, and it's hard not to notice Mina Shirakawa. She's obviously going to end up turning and joining Tony and everything. We're going to have them teaming up and everything, being all evil and whatever they were in Stardom, I assume. So, alright, there we go. I mean, I don't know how many people are necessarily going to care about this. I'm at least interested to see what they're going to do with Mariah and Mina Shirakawa, because at least they have history. I don't know how many people, you know, in the AEW bubble are going to care, but it'll be at least interesting because at least you have a little bit of something there. So Moxley then makes his entrance, and Darby comes out to a pop. And I have to say right now that I am totally done with Jon Moxley. I've been done with Moxley for a while. That man either doesn't know how to sell stuff or doesn't want to sell stuff. There was one point, though, during the entrances. They're talking about Full Gear. I guess they're getting rid of Bleacher Report. Which is a shame, because I really like that one. I really like Bleacher Report. And I like using that for the pay-per-views, but if they're going to get that, that's okay. And if we got to go to Triller TV, if you can apparently you can keep your archive, that kind of stuff. If you have an existing account or whatever it is, I mean, if you can keep the catalog, great. I personally hope the pay-per-views go to Max, and maybe we can have access to them there. But Excalibur pitches about scanning a QR code to get Full Gear tickets. You know, get them early before the general sale. Tony Schiavone says, I like those QR codes and I love AEW. I like Tony Schiavone, but what the fuck? What the fuck kind of commentary is that? So Darby versus Moxley for Darby's AEW World Title shot that he won back at Blood and Guts. I think it was the Blood and Guts 2-ring battle royal or whatever the fuck it was. He won it for here, but then Danielson wasn't clear, but then Danielson faced off against Nigel, and it makes no sense. Darby bled. Marina Shafir, look, she looks intimidating until you realize that not only do we not really know her, but she isn't really that fucking good in the ring. and it's not going to get any better. Darby takes a shot into the goddamn post. I don't know why the hell he would do that. He stuffs Mox's arm in the post a little later. That's something different. I haven't seen that before. But Moxley just, something about his matches, it just seems like he's just going through the motions. Yeah, he'll pull out a decent move here and there, and I know he's talked about how he's had injuries. It's a contact sport. Unfortunately, it's very, very rough, but it's just Moxley's matches just all blend together and they have no flow to them. So the ring mat gets pulled, or the outside mat gets pulled up, and because it's a tennis thing, they have some floor coverings for the court, but Darby dives and then crashes right on that because Darby is bound and determined to stupidly not walk by the age of 40. But then Darby basically almost gets counted out, and then, ends up basically, almost, he gets hit with an inside out on the steps, gets back in the ring, the crowd's chanting, "You can't kill him." Other fans are chanting, "Yes, he can." And then a choke, Darby gets to the ropes, we get some biting, some head biting, we get a distraction, we get a top rope Death Rider, which looked vicious, 1, 2, 3, Mox beat Darby to no surprise, and then Danielson shows up with a necktie, and he unfortunately did not choke out Justin Roberts, but, he's doing that, and then Marina Shafir's choking him. It's a human centipede choking, not, somehow actually more gross than the Human Centipede trilogy, and then Claudio and Pac show up, and then Private Party, and then Commander, and then Brian says, "I declare war, and I'm going to kick your fucking head in." I'm going to go to Wrestle Dream. I have tickets already. I bought them before the general sale and everything. I got priority access, and I'm excited to go because I had fun at last year's event. They got to give fans more reasons to go to these live shows because attendances are down and the ratings are down, and they're struggling. This was not a great show. I'm sorry. It did not click. That's why I talked about the previous shows, to say this is where it started and now we're here. No wonder they're going to go to Australia and not have a Grand Slam in, Flushing Meadows, New York next year, because what are they going to draw next time? 5,000? I don't care how much money you have. That's demoralizing to the talent. It's probably demoralizing to see the fact that they only had maybe a third of the goddamn place full. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.